Welcome, welcome to the fourth day of alumni interviews. Today we have our star Gillian with us to talk about teaching in Thailand, South Korea, and now Hungary. So we have lots to talk about in this hour. But I would like to introduce myself to give a little context for folks who are just joining us now. My name is Rachel. I'm the Sales and Marketing Manager for CIEE TEFL. I am a CIEE Teach Abroad alumni from the program in Madrid, Spain. And it's just a pleasure to get to talk with alumni and to share this experience with our community. Gabby, I'll have you introduce yourself and then we'll get to our star.
Yeah, my name is Gabby. I am the Teach Abroad and TEFL program assistant. I'm also an alumni of the Teach in Spain program as well as the Teach in Thailand program. Um, yeah, I'm happy to meet Gillian, and I think you guys are all going to love hearing about everywhere she's been because I love Rachel's like nailing. We're going to talk about here, 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 and what she did in all those places. So I'm pumped. Let's get into it.
Yes, Gillian, introduce yourself. Tell us about where you're from and what you're all about.
Okay, so I'm Gillian. I'm from the United States. I grew up in Massachusetts, and I've pretty much always wanted to live outside of the United States. So before I went to university, I had the chance to to go abroad for a summer in Europe, and I came back and I was like, guys, I'm not staying here. Like, I'm moving abroad. And I studied abroad in university and found CIEE through that program, looking for different options, best places to go, best connections to study abroad with. And that's how I found out about teaching abroad. So I knew before graduating that I would teach abroad. And of course, there are so many places to choose through CIEE. So you have to weigh your options for what you're looking for, which we will talk more about later, I'm sure. And I came down to choosing South Korea in 2020. And then I left South Korea in 2021 to go to Thailand and then taught there for a year and then went to back to Korea for a few years. And now I am teaching in Hungary also through CIEE. So we are just getting started, but I can tell you about the beginning processing of getting settled in Hungary at least.
Yeah, excellent. Great. Well, I always like to give like the full like glimpse at the timeline. So like you said, your first time going abroad was to South Korea.
Mhm.
Tell us a little about like were you a recent graduate? Like how did you come? Like what was the workings behind that decision to go to Korea?
I was talking to a friend and she originally, because I wanted to do Thailand. I was fresh out of school, you have student loans and you're like, "Oh, like what's going to work best for me?" And I was like, I would love to do Thailand first. And my friend was like, oh, that's cool. Like I was thinking about doing South Korea. So I looked into South Korea a bit more just because of the benefits. And I think I applied before I graduated or just at the end of graduating in 2019. And I did the TEFL course when I was doing another program in Indonesia. So you can do it. You can balance your life. You can get your certificate, which was immensely beneficial. And then I was on my way. So I graduated in May of 2019, and I was in Korea in the end of February 2020. So
Okay.
yeah, I knew definitely before graduating, everybody knew it was on my graduation cap that I was teaching abroad the next year.
Yeah. So that's crazy. You arrived in Korea February of 2020. That must have been a ride
Yes,
when
I
you first
landed
started.
on a Thursday night, went to school on Friday, and was told Saturday, "Hey, we're shutting down." So,
Wow.
quick adjustment with COVID, being thrown with, "You still kinda have to come to school. We still might do stuff. You gotta make phone calls to parents. You have to switch to doing online," which was crazy because I had no bookwork. I had no idea really what I was doing, and they were like, "Figure it out. You got this." But before that, I mean, CIEE does a ton of work to help you organize your life, send all the proper documents, checks in with you, helps you get insurance, which was very helpful to make the transition of getting obviously the visa process, getting picked up from the airport, coordinating with your school, setting up all the interviews, because for Korea, you do have to do interviews. Um, so it was very helpful landing, knowing that I could still have orientation through CIEE at in Korea, and then also ask any questions, have a network there, which was a good safety net to have for any questions, concerns, other CIEE people that were there to connect with as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I also like to highlight too, like the general timeline of how things work, because I think there are some misconceptions of like how fast it is from the time that you decide that you're going to be teaching abroad and like the time that you apply for our programs up until the time that you leave. And so I think it's good to know that like you graduated in May of 2019 and then you really didn't get to go abroad until almost a year later. So tell us about like that preparation process. Like what were you doing after college? Was it like, you know, exclusively dedicating time? It sounds like you maybe went to Indonesia in that time. Kind of what were the like the mental and physical preparations that took place between your graduation date and then you leaving for the teaching position?
So you get a deadline for when you can do the application for CIEE. Obviously, you can find all that on their website, but also I knew, because I knew I was teaching abroad, I just got a basic job just to get money coming in, knowing that I wasn't going to be loyal to that particular area. And also, while I was in school, because I'm a psychology major, I took the opportunity to go and do a volunteer program in Indonesia for 6 weeks in 2019. So I did the TEFL course, and that started maybe 2 weeks before I left for Indonesia. And I let them know, because you are supposed to be present for a certain number of classes. And if you're not present, then you can still pass the course, but you don't necessarily get like the 100% grade on the course. I think you get like a 90% grade on the course, which is still passing, but there is a level of attendance that they want from you. So because I was in a different time zone with spotty Wi-Fi and other commitments that I'd already agreed to, honestly, previously to applying for CIEE, then they were very willing to work with me and to be like, okay, as long as you get your work done, as long as you're doing what you're supposed to do behind the scenes, then you will still pass the course. And that was very helpful. So a little bit before that, I was doing visa work, and then I did the TEFL course, because you need to have that paperwork when you apply for your visa. And then in the few weeks leading up, or I think December, is when it really kicks into high gear, where they're sending you need to get like a doctor's note, you need to have your background check, and all of these have to be apostilled. So your background check, your diploma, and I think there's one other document that need to have like an official seal that is done, which is particular to your state, your area. And that takes time, because it can't be older than 90 days, but it also has to be within the time frame of what they're looking for. So they will keep you updated on the timelines. Hey, this is coming up, you need to get this in by X date, which was very helpful. And they also would navigate, like, this is the website you need to use, or this is where you should go to get this particular thing done, because every state has a different like visa office and coordination. So that's a little bit annoying, but that is how it works. So
Yeah, I think, I mean, and I feel like a broken record on this a lot of times, but I mean, that's a big advantage of a program like CIEE. I mean, I think, you know, there are jobs that you could apply for independently to go to Korea, of course, but if you're looking for that assistance and that like lack of a headache and in figuring out all of the minute details about the individual documents that you're going to need, and just having kind of someone to smooth out that process, I think all you need to worry about really in the beginning is the application itself for our program, and then we kind of take you through it from there, and help give you pointers. And we're collecting information from everyone who's going on our program and then spitting that back out to everyone who is on our program to help it go easier and be a lot smoother. So yeah, I think, you know, that's why it takes so long. It's just like, you know, you have like a good 6-month period where we're just, you know, filtering out information to you of things that you gotta be getting done, and so that you can arrive on time for your teaching position, which is really important. But yeah, that's awesome. So then tell us about, I mean, I'm curious to know like how that the teaching position was. Were you there for the full 12-month contract in Korea?
Yes.
And kind of like how did that go? Like, I mean, because you in that time, I'm guessing that you made the decision to want to go to Thailand.
Mhm.
You know, you sounds like you already had that in your mind before you went to Korea. But tell us a little bit about like that journey, that year in Korea.
So I had not had explicit like classroom, fully in the classroom time. So there's a different approach in every country that you go to. And I chose the Hagwon route, which is the private school route in Korea. And there are benefits to that. I mean, my flight was paid for and you get a severance and all that stuff, which is wonderful. You are the primary teacher in that classroom. The smaller class sizes, all of those things are really wonderful in Korea. That being said, there are a lot of other expectations that are added onto that, which are kind of school by school specific. So you need to do a lot of reports, and there's a specific way that you need to word things. And they're very concerned about how things are presented to the public. So there was pressure to make sure things were appearing the way they needed to. And there's a focus on bookwork in Korea, which is fine because your kids are definitely learning a lot, but there is a lot of deadlines that need to be met and kept up with. So, and also it was COVID and nobody knew how to handle that situation. So my school did its best, but there was still a lot of pressure and restrictions and navigating the world in a new country that I didn't know anybody. And we were told you can't meet anybody, you can't hang out with other people, you need to stay in your apartments because obviously it's a pandemic. So it felt isolated at times. And that was not the easiest. But maybe by November, I think I was kind of really making the decision because of the next deadline for applying for CIEE. Um, I talked to my parents and I was just like, I think I still need to go to Thailand. I need that experience. It's always where I wanted to be. And I think it will be a different experience than what I'm having right now, which was what I needed. I needed to like see what Thailand was like. So I again put the application in before finishing my contract with my school in Korea, and they knew I was not applying for another year or extending for another year. So when my contract was ended, I was back at the States for maybe 10 weeks. And
Mhm.
that was crazy. Just again, documents, emails, checks, list, everything. You do
Yeah.
not need to get an apostille. So you just need to re-up your background check. And I don't even think I needed a doctor's appointment or any of that stuff for Thailand. The difference between Korea and Thailand is CIEE works with OEG in Thailand. So there was another business, another corporation that was equally as helpful, but they coordinated together. So CIEE was for the States, and then they worked with OEG in Thailand, and OEG would help with placement of schools and um, making sure you had everything you needed on their end, because again, every visa process is different for every country. So the requirements for getting residency and the school you were working with and a person that would verify you, that all was different from Korea.
Mhm.
That being said, I personally think the transition from Korea to Thailand was much more smooth, not
Yeah.
only because I'd done the visa process before and I had an expectation of what it was going to be like, but because I felt like there was a bit more coordination with how to get everything and when it needed to be done. And um, they were more on top of it. And I want to say is probably because again it was still very COVID time, so they were telling us you don't have to quarantine as long, and then they were like 2 days later, oh my gosh, sorry guys, you do have to quarantine for the whole time. So they had to be very in the know of everything that was going on because they were bringing all the teachers, and as Rachel said, timelines are important. You needed to be in Thailand by a specific time, and if your quarantine had not started, then you would throw off the beginning of the year for settling into your classes and getting to know everybody. So that was really helpful that we had both CIEE and OEG to coordinate the very extensive process of getting all the teachers from America or other countries to Thailand, getting us picked up, getting us to our quarantine hotel, doing orientation, because you do a full orientation in Thailand before going to your school. And that was also super helpful. Not only because we would have gone stir crazy in quarantine, but because we were able to connect with everybody else, start to build those social network connections, because everybody was in one place in Bangkok and then we were spread out all over again. So then you could have friends in Khon Kaen or Chiang Rai or Phuket if they're lucky, and hit them up later and be like, hey, let's hang out, which was lovely.
Yeah. I'm guessing, this is a question for both you and Gabby. Maybe you guys were in the same arrival time in Thailand, I'm guessing you went spring 2021. Is that right?
I was spring 2021, yes.
I was fall 2021. Because I was also mentally in my head, I'm like, what's this timeline? Were we there together? What is happening here?
I think we were there for the second half of the year together, but I was in Sumaprakon, just outside of Bangkok.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I was up in the northeastern region in Khon Kaen area.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You know,
never made it up
you already mentioned it. I know you know.
Yes.
Wait, so did you know kind of where you were going to be placed beforehand, or was it a shock to you? Had you ever heard of it before going?
So the thing that I appreciate is they do in the application process, I think they ask for like dietary restrictions or something like that, because obviously that's very important for allergies or for life choices, whatever the case. So I told them, like, I personally am vegan, so I need to be placed in an area where I could easily have access to food that I would eat. So I was not explicitly in Bangkok. There are obviously a ton of schools in Bangkok. I was a street away from Bangkok, so it was very nicely located. I think for all programs, you can offer or ask to be placed with a person in particular. So if you have a friend or a partner or whatever the case, and that is also in the application process. So you can be placed together and have another person at that school or at that location already. So that's what I did for Thailand. I already knew a person that we were teaching at the same school together. So that was really helpful. But yes, in terms of Korea, you can request the region that you want to be placed in, but there's no guarantee. And it's similar in Thailand. There is, of course, no guarantee exactly where you're going to be, but you can ask to be central, south, or north. And then they take your request and your information that you provide them and try to place you in the way that is best fitted for you, or that they hope would be best fitted for you. But there is no interview process for Thailand. You do get an email with your school placement, your school information, and you can then do the internet sleuthing thing on your own.
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot on all the applications for all of our programs. There's quite a bit of preference selection that you can do. We do our best to honor that. I think that's why it's so important to apply well before the deadline that we post. Because then it's easy. I mean, we approach applications with a first come, first serve basis. So again, the earlier you apply, the better. So if you're watching this in August of 2025, our fall 2026 applications are open. This is a really good time to do it. I mean, I always give a rule of thumb of it's 6 to 12 months in advance. If you can be closer to that 12-month mark out from when you want to be abroad, that's great, because I mean, everyone has their preferences, right? That's normal. And like Gillian is saying, maybe you're requesting to be with other CIE teachers too. So if you want a better chance at receiving your preferences, then apply earlier than later, and certainly do not wait to the deadline to submit your application. I think that's my best piece of advice too. But yeah, so you were close to Bangkok. And yeah, I mean, that's a big difference between the two programs too, that you said, Gillian, is there is a very organized orientation 2 times a year in Thailand in our program. both spring, like Gillian did, and fall, like Gabby did. In comparison to South Korea, there's not as big of an orientation effort when you first arrive, although we do our best in making sure that you are oriented when you get into country. But yeah, so then tell us a little bit about, because so you were in Thailand for a full year, it sounds like, Gillian, and how, like, what was the shock like? I mean, you said that the transition was pretty smooth, but there had to have been a lot of differences between the teaching role and like kind of how things shifted for you once you became a lead teacher in Thailand.
So we could start with the teaching side for sure. Thailand is very famous for its Mai Pen Rai mentality. Everything's good, everything's fine, which is very much a different approach from Korea. So I found both my co-teachers, and I had a few in the kindergarten that I was working at, to be so sweet and so helpful. They wanted to talk, to exchange, to help as much as possible. They were so lovely, and I could ask them for literally anything. Like if I got a phone call about a parcel that I'd ordered and I needed them to translate it, they were there and so willing to do it. So the situation in the classroom was also slightly different. Again, every school is different. That is something that is, if you could take a piece of advice or whatever you take from this, every school situation, especially in Thailand, is very different, which can feel frustrating at times. But that being said, that means that your experience is very unique. So my personal experience at my school was, it was a very large school. So we had a kindergarten on one side and a primary school on the other side. And I was co-teaching in my classroom. So my co-teachers were there for K1, which are the very littles, to K3, which is the last year of kindergarten for Thailand students. And they basically were like walking to the classroom and they're like, okay, this is what we're going to cover. And I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to cover. Um, the other really big difference that I noticed is Thailand has a lot of British English teachers, which means that the language that they use commonly might be different from the American use of things. So instead of like an eraser, they would say a rubber or a garbage bin or something like that, stereos. So it took a little bit of time because you have to code switch a bit, which I'm not quite used to. And even right now, I have an English flatmate and we get confused. We speak the same language, but we only understand each other 90% of the time. So those type of things, very important to know. I had projectors in Korea. We had like chalkboards and maybe a projector here and there. Depending on your school, you will create a lot of your lesson plans and your resources. You are the person in the classroom, depending on the school, to be the one leading. There's a lot more media that we could use for the Thai students. And there was, again, lots of ups and downs dealing with the pandemic. So my kids were there, my kids were not there. We were doing videos, we were recording, making Zoom lessons, and the technology access is a lot different. So we were posting things on Facebook rather than having like a forum that the parents could join. Wi-Fi was decently fine. So like connecting to things was different, but not everybody would necessarily have the same access to technology. So it was important for making sure that our students could get access to what we were providing them. Sometimes there was Zoom lessons. Sometimes it was um, a mix of media, different reinforcements, but there was a lot of activities that they did. Lots of art, lots of crafts, lots of playtime. The K1s had nap time, so classroom experience was definitely different in Thailand, which was wonderful. Not a lot of aircon all around, so be prepared. And you also do have to wear a uniform in Thailand, at least at my school. We were given specific polo shirts to wear on specific days. We were told to bring, they said like flat black shoes. They did not explicitly say slip-ons, but for women, they were requesting like slip-on shoes, black skirts that would go below the knee. So there were more requirements that they told us again before ahead of time. They were like, please pack these things or get them before you start teaching. And I think that's the same in most of Thailand. The men are expected to wear like slacks and polo shirts, and the women are expected to dress a bit more modestly or with a uniform that the school does provide you.
Yeah, that's a good note to, if they don't already share that information with you, to inquire about that so you have the correct clothing packed in your bag. Yeah, just out of curiosity, because every school is different. Gabby, what was your like dress code? Was there any specific requirements?
Ours, we didn't have a specific uniform. It was just make sure you're wearing a skirt or a dress that goes beyond the knees, black flats as well. And nothing see-through, like blouse wise. But yeah, we didn't receive any polos. I obviously, like you mentioned, every school's different. I had other teachers in my cohort who did wear uniforms to school every single day, but yeah, ours was just make sure you're wearing skirt or dress. No pants were allowed, no shorts were allowed. And yeah, that's pretty much it, which sounds kind of loose, but um, it is what it is.
It's still pretty specific. I mean, I know we got a question
Yeah.
hacking on Instagram. So yeah, that's definitely a separate consideration. Were there, I mean, apart from like the uniforms, Gillian, was there anything specific for Korea that you had to pack for school?
No, there was no explicit dress code. It is pretty casual in a way. Obviously, you're still a teacher, dress appropriately, but I could wear a t-shirt, I could wear a sweatshirt, I could wear jeans, you can wear dresses. You My first school did not require us to take our shoes off. My students had to have indoor shoes to take their shoes off. My second school that I taught at in South Korea, we did have to, everyone had to take their shoes off and wear indoor shoes. So if that is something, you can obviously buy that in country. But packing, Korea has all 4 seasons. You need to pack for the very humid, hot, rainy summers. I know that sounds like a lot, but it is incredibly humid. It is very warm, and it is 6 weeks of rainy season that will take up the bulk of the heart of your summer. Fall is amazing. It's beautiful. It's colorful. It's my favorite time of year, and I basked in the Korean falls. Wintertime, they get powdery snow, not overly heavy snow, but my experience is they don't actually pave the streets, so you or clear the streets, so you will be walking on inches of thick ice. So be prepared to take a tumble and pack your boots or find something in Korea if you are committed to staying, because you will need something to protect your feet or to grip onto the snow. Springtime, obviously lovely, beautiful, cherry blossoms. So my advice is I could not do it. I definitely overpacked my first time, but you will probably need the 2 full suitcases or you need like transitional staple pieces that will get you from somewhere between like 35 degrees or hotter, potentially 90 degrees in Fahrenheit, down to like the negatives. Maybe I think the lowest it got was like -8 degrees Celsius, or in the like negative teens Fahrenheit. So that
Yeah,
was a surprise. I guess to people who are not from the North. I am from the north of the US. I loved it, but people from California, Texas, Florida, they were seeing snow for the first time. They were like experiencing all 4 seasons for the first time. They were not prepared.
Yeah, I mean, the seasons thing is kind of crazy. I mean, really, if you're going to anywhere around the world, definitely do your research on that, because I've heard many people being shocked like that Madrid gets a winter. They're like, what? So it's like, do your research on the seasons for sure, especially like when you first arrive, like you should know more or less what to expect, so that you can have a bit easier transition for sure. But that's that's an underrated piece of advice, I think, that people might not think of, is to research the weather conditions where you're going.
And the one thing I will say, the surprise to me in Korea was it doesn't matter how short your shorts or skirts are, but it does matter how much you cover up to your back into your collarbones. So like walking around, this was completely fine. Like collarbones needed to be covered. But if you are not used to that, you will get stared at. So making sure, I guess, to pack a little bit more conservatively anywhere on the streets, shopping, going about your day. They do expect your top half to be covered. They don't really care much about your legs. It's just a cultural thing. It is different in Thailand. In Thailand, it is warm. If you're at the beach, if you're in the touristy areas, wear what you want. You might still get a little bit of looks here and there, but it is warmer. Everyone does understand. I think that just is like region dependent. I never had any problems living close to Bangkok.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all about, doing some research. I think sometimes you also get contact information in some cases of folks that have taught at the school placement that you had before. So, anytime that you can reach out. And of course, on our Instagram account, TikTok account, we usually have our teachers running our accounts. Gillian and Gabby were both ambassadors sharing their experience while they were teaching abroad, and maybe post teaching abroad as well. Just about like what to expect. So if you see anyone on our Instagram account, you can always reach out to them. That's a really great place to direct questions if you want to hear from our participants directly and teachers who are out in the field. So that's great. Well, I want to take it back a little bit. So one thing that you had noted about Thailand is that you were a lead teacher, and there's like, ups and downs of being, coordinating all of that. And so as a sales and marketing manager for TEFL, I'm dying to know, because for people that don't know, TEFL is actually required for South Korea. That is something that you are going to be required to do if you haven't already done it, for teaching in Korea through our program. But it's not required for Thailand. However, I have a bone to pick with that sometimes, because it's like you are a lead teacher, right? And so if you don't have any teaching experience, maybe your bachelor's degree wasn't specifically in education, there are some trials and tribulations that come along with stepping into the classroom with little to no experience. So how did TEFL, what was the role that TEFL played in your level of comfortability in the classroom? And you can, go back and forth from South Korea to Thailand, however you see fit there to answer that question.
So I obviously never had any experience in the classroom previously to getting my TEFL. It was really helpful because you did have like a lead person, an instructor, and there were also other people that were in taking the course with you. So the lead instructor had a ton of resources that they shared for every level, because there is a variety of levels that you can assign to, especially in Thailand. Korea is pretty much Hagwon, which is kindergarten level. And then maybe if you do the epic route, I think there's a bit more variety in movement. But that being said, your English learners are going to have a wide breadth of knowledge, or gaps in the knowledge of what they do and don't know. So having the resources, having a person that is giving tips, tricks, classroom management tips, all of those things it was such a good resource, which I was obviously able to apply when you do the practicum to see those things in real life working for you. That being said, you are going to go through a lot of emotions being in the classroom. So having that practicum is going to help you feel more secure, more confident when you're in front of your students, especially like the younger ones are going to love you. They're going to be great. They're going to be touchy feely. But you also need to know how to get their attention, how to keep their attention, and how to make things engaging. And that will all be covered in the practicum. But also the older students, if you have older students, you might have the ones that are too cool for school, and maybe they need a little bit more relatability in their work. So the resources that were given would help them in everyday English, not only in like textbook English. So I think that the resources provided, both by having an instructor and giving the material to us, as well as being in a class of other students who have different experiences as well, can talk about what they've experienced, what they've learned, what they're bringing to the table, is also super helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, our TEFL course is pretty collaborative, I'd say. I mean, there are lots of interactions with others that are taking the course with you, and they also might be doing the same program as you. Sometimes they're not. It is kind of a mixed bag, since we launch courses every 2 weeks year round. So you might get a mixed bag of folks who are taking the TEFL course with you, and then you have the TEFL instructor too, who, I mean, our TEFL instructors are extremely well and knowledgeable about the TEFL industry, and a lot of them are still out in the field themselves. So yeah, I think that's a good resource, especially if you're concerned about it. If you're concerned about age group specifically, we do actually have a special an age specialization course as well. That can help tackle like specific age range if you know that you want to work with young kids or you want to work with teenagers or adults, whatever. You can get more support in those areas if you need, but definitely the 150-hour course, like I said, is required for South Korea because we want folks to have, and I mean, it's just required by the employers there that we work with. So we want you to have those resources, and we highly encourage you for Thailand to get TEFL certified. Because like Gillian is saying, I mean, you're going to have ups and downs regardless. If you have more tools, that's going to make those a little bit easier to navigate. But yeah, in general, that's good advice, Gillian. Great. Well, so we talked a little bit about Korea, then you moved to Thailand. Tell us about, because then you went back to Korea. So walk us through like the thought process there of and how that went down.
Mhm. So I talked a little about the benefits of Korea versus Thailand. So the benefits of Korea is at the time, it might be changing a little bit now. It has been a few years, but at the time you were offered round trip airfare. You had better pay. So if you are first starting out, you will not be making as much. But at the beginning, I was offered 2.1 million won, which at the time of conversion was still pretty good. It was about $1,800. And then they offer pension and severance. So if when you complete a full year contract, you will get 1 month's severance. And then while you're working there for the 12 months, you also get a portion of your paycheck, which goes towards your pension, which is required in Korea by Korean law. So when I left Korea, I had enough money to comfortably not work in the time between Korea and Thailand to pay for everything for Korea and Thailand, the flights, the quarantine hotel, the program for CIEE, and settling into Thailand at the offset, the initial part before payday in there. So the pay is more competitive, the benefits are more beneficial. But the trade-off is you have a lot more working hours. So I worked 11 to 8 in Korea my first year, and I was working afternoons and evenings. So I had one kindergarten class, and the afternoon was my entire schedule with the older students. Um, that being said, it was fine. It was great for what I needed, but the transition to Korea or from Korea to Thailand was a bit of a shock because you get about a little less than 1,000 USD working full time in Thailand. The hours for me were a little bit earlier. I think I was leaving for work at like 7:30, 7:45 in the morning, walking to work, or taking the Songtao, which is the local bus, which was super cheap, 8 baht, not a problem. And then you would get paid. My school paid, I think it was 30,000 baht a month, and there was a severance. If you did complete your contract, you would also get 30,000 baht at the end while leaving. But flights were not paid for, and there was no pension. You did have health insurance in both countries, which was super helpful. Um, and my apartment were pretty much the same. I had a studio apartment in both Korea and in Thailand, but the amenities were different. I had a kitchen and like a wet room in Korea, and in Thailand, I had like a proper shower and no kitchen, just a refrigerator. You can buy a hot surface, but it's honestly so common to just buy street food if you're down for street food or 7-Eleven dinners, just because there are a lot more bugs or critters in Thailand. So be aware of that. If you are scared or nervous, pack your bug spray or buy it there. Um, that is definitely something to keep in mind. But the difference was the adjustment of life. I was living very comfortably, saving money in Korea. I was living comfortably for Thai standards, but I was not saving money in Thailand. I was still traveling when I could, even though we were not allowed to leave the country at the time. Now, I'm sure it's different. If you want to sign up for Thailand, it is very easy to hop on a bus or a plane, go anywhere around Southeast Asia. But at the time, we were not allowed to because it was the pandemic. So we took night buses. Other people that were there, you could fly, but it really wasn't worth it. The night buses are amazing. They are your best friend in Thailand. So even if it's to the island, we took a night bus from Bangkok all the way to Koh Samui. So it's possible. It's amazing. It's going to get you from point A to point B. You will enjoy it a lot. So the benefits of one versus the other, if you want the Four Seasons, if you want benefits of saving, severance, pension, airfare, that is Korea. If you want warmth, beaches, amazing food and cultural experiences, lots of lovely people, that would be Thailand. That would kind of be the advice I would go for. It is a very different vibe between the both countries, and both of them are what you make of it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the key. It is what you make of it. Yeah, I mean, I always say, I know there are a lot of folks that have financial concerns when it comes to teaching abroad. Teaching abroad is a venture that requires you to have some savings in any case, but it is true, like Gillian is saying, I think South Korea is really the best bang for your buck if you're looking for, pretty good compensation and the ability to save money. I'm going to shout out colleague Lauren, who in the past has been the coordinator for Teach in Spain, but she taught in Korea, and she was a blog writer back in the day when she was teaching in Korea. She paid off her student loans while she was teaching in Korea. So it's possible, to have a very comfortable lifestyle and then also be able to save money for other expenses that you might have outside of, your living day to day in Korea. So very cool stuff. To kind of continue the timeline, so you're coming to the end of your time in Thailand. Did you go independently back to Korea?
Yeah.
And how was that transition going then back to Korea from Thailand?
So thankfully, because I did meet other teachers through the CIE program that stayed in Thailand. So no, I did not expressly go through CIEE to go back to Korea, but I made connections through CIEE that allowed me to I still had really close friends, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking of coming back. And they were like, cool, send your resume, we'll help get you in. So I did not repay for a program fee, although if you are a CIEE alumni, you do get a discount if you apply for other programs. That being said, I did go back independently. I spent a little less than 3 years there the last time, 2 full years, and then I just completed out the end of the year, which is in end of February for my last contract. And that was a very different experience, obviously, because it was not the pandemic. We were coming out of the pandemic, so I had a lot more freedom. And the comparison between my first school and my second school was a lot different. The location was pretty similar. I was still just outside of Center Seoul, but my life was very, very comfortable. Made a ton of friends, lots of connections, loved living there. Ease of life is amazing, and you will never be bored living in Korea. I still have a ton of things that I'm like, oh, I wish I did that. I spent almost 4 years there. So that was amazing. But that being said, I knew I always wanted to go to Europe. So I wrapped up my time in Korea, and I reached out again because there are a ton of other programs, not just in Thailand and Spain and Korea, but there was Morocco, Japan, Hungary. If you are an alumni, I think that is an important caveat.
Yes.
And I think there's one other program. So I was looking at each of them on the CIEE page because you don't have to pay a program fee. You just have to be an alumni. And Hungary had always caught my eye. Even when I was in the middle of my, 2 years in Korea, I was still looking. And the famous Parliament building, the one that everybody knows in Budapest, would just be captured at nighttime. And I was like, that looks like it would be amazing. So I applied, I think, just before leaving Korea in January, February, and that process was not that bad, honestly, coming here. I spent a month in California with my friends. I spent a month in Massachusetts with my family, and then spent 2, 3 months down the south. My parents moved down south. So even though I was in a million locations, I was still able to get what I needed to do. The difference is there are a different set of requirements for applying for Hungary in particular. Like I needed to get a TB test, I needed to get an HIV test just to provide proof to the Hungarian government. I did have to get a doctor's assignation or a doctor's note and a background check, fingerprints done, all of that stuff. So that again, timeline sensitive, they do keep you updated on all of that information. There is also an extensive interview process. So there's 2 programs that you can apply for. You can apply for the kindergarten program or the upper or primary level programs. That being said, their first interview is to talk about your background, your interest, what you want from the classroom. They asked what I wanted to teach because I will be teaching a huge variety of classes, which are very new to me. They asked my background and all of that in the first interview, which was very helpful because that gave them information that they could pass on to the second interview. And the second interview was more nit and gritty, where they were asking um, more into what I heard from the program, what I hope to get out of the program, what the program was looking for. It was a long interview process, but when you get your job offer and start providing all the information again, they are super helpful. They provide a checklist that you have to submit things by. They email, they do Zoom calls to verify. So the transition was not a headache at all. I found it pretty easy. I would just wake up to a message and I'd be like, okay, I'm doing that today. And even without having health insurance in the United States between the 2 countries, it was pretty easy to get done and get in time to come to Hungary to settle in for a very early orientation. My school year has not started yet, and I've been here for like 6 or 7 weeks.
Yes. Yeah, so just to clarify what Gillian was saying, so she's referring to Hungary as part of our CIEE TEFL job placement assistance opportunities, and it's exclusive for people who have completed the 150-hour CIEE TEFL course. We do not accept TEFL certifications from other companies. You have to do it through us because that is the part of the partnership that we have. In Hungary, we actually work with 2 separate employers, and you as the applicant get to choose who you want to work with. Like Gillian was saying, there's a difference in kind of the teaching role and like the age level of students that you can weigh the pros and cons of before deciding. And yeah, so Hungary is one of the locations. Santiago, Chile is another one. We have one in the south region of Spain in a region called Murcia. We have a placement in Morocco, which is super cool. And then we also have placement partners. We have 2 in Japan. So again, if you're interested, you don't have to be an alumni of a CIE teacher abroad program. You just have to take the 150-hour TEFL course to qualify for those. And those opportunities are free of charge. So there's no program fee for that. The biggest difference, I think, between like the opportunities we've been talking about for Korea and Thailand, and then in comparison to a place like Hungary, is that CIEE does not provide essentially the relocation services that we do for Korea and Thailand. But you're not like out on an island by yourself doing it alone, because our partners do provide that. Is like Gillian was saying, they gave her, a checklist, and they are making sure that things are going smoothly. A perfect example of that is what Gillian is saying, is like this year, some of the regulations, it seems like, have changed. And so they let, the teachers know, and Gillian was able to get out earlier than expected for the program. So you are definitely in the loop on things that are going on with the logistics of getting you to your country, right? And that's not exclusive to Hungary. That's for all of our programs. You do get advice. Maybe it's not directly from us, but you're not alone on that just moving abroad process. So yeah, I mean, now that you're in Hungary, you're starting this new position. You start on Monday, which is very exciting, with kids in the classroom. Like, what are you looking to get out of this, and kind of what's the long-term goal and what's long-term vision with this new position in Hungary?
So I have experienced some version of culture shock. I can't say it's like expressly like everybody else has felt because I've been abroad for so long. That being said, Europe is different than Asia in its own lovely and crazy ways. So I got very used to like reading Korean and knowing what it was like to live in a just to one area, to know what it was like to work in a Korean system and the pressures of that. Coming to the bilingual program, which is a program that I'm in Hungary, was it's amazing because it's beautiful here. Obviously, there's so much to see, just to look at and to notice. Hungarian is a different beast than Korean is or Thai is. So navigating is different. I think people just look at me and they just assume that I know. And I'm just like, I don't know what you're saying. I'm very sorry. I just got here. Um, so that is a newer experience to just people look and they think, oh, you're here. It's fine. We're getting through that. That being said, the bilingual program focuses a lot. Its focus is a lot different, I think, than the previous experiences that I have had, where I said that Korea was book heavy and concerned about producing a product, whereas the goal of bilingual is to facilitate a lot of pair work, group work, and student talking time, not necessarily only to complete books or to show a product at the end. The product is what the students are able to produce in terms of language acquisition and output. They have a huge orientation, which has been pretty helpful. Everyone is going to have their complaints about an orientation. I will put that out there. But that being said, it was very helpful because they showed videos, they had us do demo lessons, they had us coordinate. We met our program managers and we have teacher trainers. There are a ton of resources that are being offered. I've already been in my school for this past week, settling in, meeting with other teachers through my program, meeting my Hungarian co-teachers. So my kids do not start until Monday, but they've already come to school. We've already met. We've already started showing them what lessons are going to be like. So the adjustment is pretty much the same, with a ton of resources and a ton of help along the way. I think for this experience, I hope to see a lot more joy in the classroom, a lot more um, of what I can do independently, because that was not always offered to me through the schools that I was placed at, not like explicitly through CIEE, but like I said, every school is different. So the freedom of planning lessons, of doing activities, of choosing media is a lot more free in Hungary and a lot more intensive in terms of they really emphasize student collaboration, regardless of if they're very beginner levels, which is what I'm starting out with, or all the way up to eighth grade, where they should be like B2 by the time they finish the Cambridge level exams.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point, Jillian, on if you're like debating where you want to go. I think a lot of people get stuck on location, 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 like where am I going to go to South Korea or Thailand or Hungary? I think too, what you're saying about like the nature of the teaching position and like the freedom that you have, and also the professional development or compensation that's available to you through these positions is also a really big consideration that you should definitely weigh the pros and cons of beforehand. You know, like, is professional development and having like that freedom in the classroom a priority for you? I think Hungary is obviously, like you're saying, a great place to get that as a part of your teaching role. Are you concerned about being able to save money? Korea is a better place to do that. Are you more that, you know, laid back lifestyle, you know, maybe Thailand or maybe Spain is more, you know, the priority for that. I would say like maybe traveling is you know, important aspect. Where are you wanting to travel? So there are a lot of considerations that you've touched on, Jillian, I think that are really helpful in terms of like especially related to the teaching position of like really think about like what do you want to get out of the teaching position, and have that direct, what decisions you want to make in terms of where you want to go and what you want to pursue. So that's awesome to hear that they have so much professional development. I think sometimes there's not, I mean, it sounds like for Thailand, maybe not so much of like an orientation into like the teaching role and kind of their expectations there. But that's cool that you got like a month. Maybe that's too much. I don't know. But it sounds like it was a good opportunity to at least, get used to like their expectations and to set yourself up really strong for the school year to come.
Yeah. And just going back to what you were saying, I think it's important to highlight what you want from the experience of teaching abroad, because I didn't really have an expectation my first year. I thought it was going to be difficult, but not crazy. Um, and obviously, if you even separate out the pandemic from that, the experience was different. And you can say, like, oh, it's only my job, but everything is connected to your job, your visa, your housing, like your benefits. So you don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize that particular part of it. And obviously, if you're not having a great time at your school, for a variety of reasons, whatever those reasons, like it is important to know that that is still a huge part of the reason that you're in that country. So you can do a ton of things outside of that to kind of mitigate maybe what is not the most amazing teaching experience. Building a great social network, you will need good friends in your country, rely on connecting with your family. And I will say this in terms of packing, pack your favorite foods, like things you cannot access easily. Um, like for me, I use a lot of nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is not easy to come by in every country in the world. So pack comfort foods when you're there just to kind of get you over bad days and to think, what do I hope to do while here, not only in the classroom, because yes, professional development, what you put into it is what you get out of it, all of those things. But what do you hope to gain and to grow from this? Because this is now my 6th year teaching, and this is my job. This is now my career, which I did not anticipate at the beginning. So professional development is something that I am looking for at this stage of teaching English as a foreign language.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one thing to share with you. So something about myself, I live in Spain for people that don't know. And Gillian is 100% right. Okay. Let's just show that right there. You can't get nerds just anywhere, people. Okay.
No, when I lived in Spain, it was buffalo sauce and mac and cheese. I was bringing back.
Yes. Yes. That is a really good piece of it. Yeah. I mean, I think like having that reflection is so important. I feel like, I mean, part of going abroad, I feel like is being a little bit impulsive. I made a TikTok video not too long ago about being delusional, because you need that delusion a little bit, but being self-reflective before the experience starts so that you can kind of look back and grow from that. I think that's really, really solid advice. To people who are looking, especially at different locations.
And I will pass on the piece of advice that someone gave me, because I did have a minor crash out before going to South Korea. I remember texting my very close friend at the time and being like, oh my God, am I making a huge mistake? This is a whole year of my life, thinking that that's a long time. But I was like, but it's also just a year of my life. Like I am anticipating on living like a full life. It's not that long. And she said, you're going to meet people that are just like you. You are going to meet people who love to travel, who love adventure, and you will have a great time. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be nervous. It is a year of your life, but it's going to go by so fast. The days will feel long, but the year will be gone in an instant. So enjoy the ride. And it is a year of your life, but it can be an amazing year of your life or longer if you decide to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's always my last question is the biggest piece of advice that you have. So that great wisdom for folks that are thinking about it. And yeah, go for it. Just do it. Make that decision. So, well, any last words, pieces of wisdom, Gillian, as we're kind of wrapping up, I want to be respectful of everyone's time today.
Like I said, overpacking It's kind of a thing. I get it. So yeah, bring your favorite food. You don't really need school supplies, but you can troll all the blogs, find out what is common in the area that you're going to, or hard to find, whatever the case. Um, Stay connected both with your friends at home. You will miss things. You will miss birth of family members. I have two nieces that were born, weddings, engagements. You will miss those things. But you will also build an amazing life abroad. You will meet the most amazing people that you would never have met before. So enjoy the ride, embrace the craziness, go with the flow, and it's worth it. It is honestly worth every bit of it.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Gillian. I really appreciate you sharing. I'm happy to see you going into your school year with happiness. We'll have to check back in and see how things are going in Hungary later on.
Mhm.
But I wish you all the best, and thanks for everyone for tuning in today. We'll see you guys again next week.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Bye,
Bye,
guys. Thanks,
guys.
Jen.